Hello, chess friends, and welcome to Jozarov's chess channel, and welcome to the TCEC Season 15 Super Final between the two top engines, Leela C and Stockfish. So in the round 38, we had a really great game played by Leela C, and today I wanted to show you a very really cool game played by Stockfish from the round 39, and this game really shows the differences between human and engines, I think, because it really scares me a little bit when I watch these games. I always ask myself, where's the limit of these top engines? Because in this game, these two top engines I played, I think they played like at least 4,000 elo points, so it's unbelievable what they do. And basically when I analyze this game, of course I can only use maybe some Stockfish engines or some other engines, and we watching maybe Leela C crushing Stockfish, so I cannot really find the best move. Sometimes maybe it's really not a problem, I think, but I try really at least to find some ideas for myself, to find the best continuations in some opening lines. And I talked about in one of my videos about the problems of the French defense and some other defenses in which you not immediately occupy this fifth rank, in which you just occupy maybe here the sixth rank with the black pieces, like maybe in the modern defense, in this French defense or some Persian defense games or similar ideas, in which you don't occupy immediately the fifth rank with some c5 moves or e5 moves or even d5 moves. I had my issues while playing myself the French defense, because get I always get pushed out in these openings, and that's why I basically try to play Sicilian or this e5, this common, this natural move against e4. And you see how dangerous it is now for the top engines to play this French defense or this passive setups in the first move, because I think maybe in 10 or 20 years we'll see that maybe the top engines will never play anymore the French defense. So it really terrifies me. It's, I think, something we cannot predict, but these top engines are developing, and I think they will develop even much more even to a 4,000 rating point elo. So it's maybe a possible thing for this top engine. So let's see now the game from the round 39. Stockfish with the white pieces, Leela C with the black pieces, and we had, as I said, this e6. Here d4, we have d5 by Leela C, and now knight on c3. Now Stockfish goes into this most aggressive line with knight on c3. We have bishop on b4, the pinning idea, a common idea for the French defense, but you have lost the defense here of this g7 pawn. And here after the move e5, well, it's already a sort of directed chess game in which both of these players can show you really the direction of the attacks. Of course, white is gonna coordinate the attack on the king side, black on the queen side. But I hope you realize, if you're a French player yourself, that sometimes you have a sort of a lack of defender situation around the king after castling. So here c5 was played, also common idea, and now a3. Bishop takes on c3, b takes c3, also still perfectly fine. So white is continuing the game with the bishop pair, with a powerful central control, but with this double pawn on the c file, and black is gonna probably coordinate his attack on the queen side with some b5 or a5 moves, with queen on a5 and knight on c3, really challenging these weaknesses on the queen side. But there is this line here after knight on e7, and now queen on g4, also common theory. And we'll come to this particular moment in the game. It's unbelievable that this particular line, when it comes to that, I'll tell you. So it's unbelievable that it was last played in this maybe master level between two feeder masters. So it wasn't played in this top grandmaster level, maybe by Magnus Carlsen or I don't know, Wesley So, Nakamura, Fabiano Caruana, and these other top grandmasters. So it's unbelievable that maybe this particular lines of these top engines weren't even recognized now by the top grandmasters. So I don't know here after casting. Here you can play also king on f8 in order to protect the g7 because, as I said, white will have the problems here around the d4, so it's also a common move. But here Leela C0 decided to castle, and here bishop on d3 was played, and this is sort of a provocative move here by white because we are waiting here black to play maybe the move c4. When the move c4 comes, then we have now a really static position here, and of course you have to play something like bishop e2. But if queen on a5 or similar ideas, then you can simply cover this c3 pawn, and now we have a perfect attack by these bishops and support it with the queen, and well, we can also support the attack with this rook. So I think with this lack of defenders, which I mentioned, with the knight and f5, you can basically place maybe one defender here. It will be really dangerous around black's king. In the continuation, c4 was not played here. Knight on c6 and now knight on f3. We are staying, of course, on the defense of this d4 pawn because the d4 pawn, well, it's sort of a center of our pawn chain here, and if our opponent cracks the position around this d4 pawn, it could be really deadly here for white. So that's why you have to stay onto the defense of this d4 pawn. If you play now c4, it's really dangerous. You get even crushed immediately because we have the Greek gift tactic here. Bishop on h7, king takes on h7, and now queen on h5. You have to go with your king on g8, now knight on g5. You see how dangerous this lack of defender situation around black kings is. So here rook on e8 has to be played in order to prevent checkmates, and here you can take queen on f7. Here we can play queen on h5 again, but now after king on g8, here queen on h7 again, maybe some perpetual moves. King on g8 has to be played again, but now we can play a very powerful move, h4. After maybe something like b5 in order to grab some space on the queen side, we can play something like rook on h3. Now knight on f5 is a defender, but the problem about this knight on f5 that it's not fixed here. We can play the move g4 and continue our attack. So again, we can play something like queen on f7, king on h8 has to be played, but now you see g4, queen on d7 has to be played, and now queen on g6. Here after king on g8 again, we can simply take out this knight, and this will be really here a losing game for black. So that's why I see after knight on f3, you have to do something here on the king side, and the best move is the move f5 here. Queen on g3 was played, and now queen on h5, and here bishop on d2 by Stockfish, of course protecting this c3 weakness, and here now b6 was played. This is now really tricky idea by Leela C0. It seems that this queen, after a potential c4 move, doesn't have good squares, but that's really not true. It leads into a very dangerous line for white, because now we have queen on a4. We are hiding a little bit with the queen here. We're infiltrating on the queen side here with this queen, and now you see the position in the center gets dynamic. So that's why here with the king in the center, with this well, not well placed bishops now, because they are a little bit blocked out, we can play something after potential continuation. C takes d5. After e takes d5, here you have to play the move c3, but now a very powerful move is the move bishop on e6, a6, attacking this bishop on d3. And here after bishop takes, queen takes on a6, well, this bishop is a little bit well out of game, although we have a potential g5 square. But in a potential endgame, these two pawns are on dark squares, and they could get attacked here by this knight. This knight will always find good squares in some closed center position like here. So you can also try something like, I don't know, instead of bishop on a6, you can try even c takes d4, and here after c takes d4, f4 is an interesting idea. Now bishop takes on f4, and now knight takes on d4. Now after bishop on e3, knight on f3, g takes f3 has to be played, and now again, well, black, I think, has a good continuation here. Here we have possibilities: knight on f5, bishop on f5. Well, you have to improve the position of this pawn here on f3 because it's a weakness. But if you place it on f4, then you have blocked out your own bishop. So we can always try to create sort of a blockade against this potential f5 move. So I think this is a simplified position, and black has better chances to win the game here. So after a4, you see here Stockfish played the move a4 in order to prevent his queen on a4 ideas. And here, as I said, the last winning game that I found on some chess bases, it was a game played by Eckhard Kuhl against Manuel Apicella, and these are two FIDE masters around 2300 rating. So this line was never played in the top grandmaster level. So here Stockfish went into a maybe unknown territory. But if we watch the position after here c4, preventing this now c4 ideas for white, after c4 we have now, well, the cleared position in the center. After bishop on e2, this position is much more simplified for white. We have now really directed attack. Now the bishops are really aiming, and we have protected the c3 pawn. And I think again white has a very dangerous attack with his four pieces, with the queen, with the knight, with this bishop pair aiming on the king side. White is simply better here. So of course you can try the move b5 like Leela C0 did in the game, but it's really not a problem. Castling was played. We have a takes b takes a4, and now rook on a2. Preparing, of course, rook on a1, and in the next move we can take again this pawn. But here after bishop on d7, you don't have to immediately attack this a4 pawn, because it's a weak pawn anyway, and you grab it one way or another. So it means that you can play sort of a blockade against the potential advance of this pawn. So here, that's why Stockfish played very aggressive now with the move h4. And well, at least we can play something like h4, h6 in order to even more weaken the king side here. So really dangerous attack. Now here king on h8 was played, getting out of this g file mess, because the queen is always creating this covered attacks on the king. Rook from f to a1 finally now played, and well, maybe here h6 would have been the idea to, well, not allow this h5 h6 ideas. But here after rook from f to a1, rook from f to b8 was played, and here now rook on a4, rook on b1, it's perfectly fine. So you can take, and here rook takes on a4. But now bishop on g5 played by Stockfish. So now we want to get use of this bishop. It's also sort of a provocative move, because we're waiting a little bit and waiting black to do this h6 move, just in order to weaken the pawn structure around the king even more, leaving some light square problems around black's king. So here knight on g8 was played, and now h5. And here maybe now the best move would have been really this h6 move, although it weakens the pawn structure. But at least, well, you have to play something like bishop on f4 or even bishop on d2. And here black can try queen on c2, taking this pawn. But now rook on c1. After rook on b2, we can play then rook on d1. And okay, well, you see black has really good chances now to push forward here this pawn, because we have now a supported pass pawn. The queen is active here and can support. but still white has this direction of the attack here, so if white coordinates these pieces very well, it could be also dangerous. Here the position, the evaluation is better for black, but from a human perspective, maybe you can, as white, really create a very dangerous attack here. But instead of h6, queen on a6 was played by Stockfish, pardon me, by Leela C0, and this was now the decisive mistake in the game, I think. Here Stockfish played h6, very good move, and here after knight on h6, I think most of us, and that's the difference between top engines and humans, we would play something like, I don't know, bishop on h6, after g takes on h6, we would play simply like something like queen on h4 and attack this weak pawn, then maybe go to queen on f6 or similar ideas, but not Stockfish. Here after knight takes on h6, bishop on f6 was played, sacrificing the bishop. Unbelievable attack, and here after g takes on f6 we have e takes f6, and now we have really a powerful pawn here. This pawn restricts the knight's ability to play, to get into the defense here with the move knight on e7. That's why rook on g8 had to be played in order to, of course, prevent this queen on g7 checkmate here. Knight on g5 was played, and now rook on g6. Maybe e5 here would have been a better idea to close the position here for the queen, because the queen has a very interesting square here, d6, with this move queen on d6. The queen can really infiltrate in the position. So here after d takes e5, at least you have slowed down a little bit white's attack, white's progress here. But we have also two connected pass pawns here, so again it's really deadly here for black. So that's why after knight on g5, rook on g6 was played, because of course f7 was the threat. So this is the main idea here by white, to create this f7, then deflect the rook here from the g8 square. That's why rook on g6 was played, and now comes this move queen on d6. Now the queen is really cemented here. It cannot be attacked by any minor piece here. The queen has infiltrated in black's camp very powerful. And here queen on c7 was played, because of course the threat was to go into the game here, maybe with moves as rook on b8. So that's why you have to cover the 8th rank. But if you take here the knight on g5 immediately, then you get queen takes on d7. Is really dangerous for black. Basically it's game over here, because you have to bring the rook back again on the 8th rank, and now rook on b7 is game over here, because this h7 is basically unprotectable. So that's why here after queen on d6, queen on c8 was played, getting the queen back into the defense. But now powerful move, rook on b7, unbelievable stuff. So here of course queen on b7 had to be played, because in the next move we were threatening to take the bishop. And here after queen takes on b7, we have now queen on f8, and you have to cover of course with the rook. But now queen takes on h6, and of course the threat is now to checkmate here on h7. But also we have the preparation to play the move f7. So that's why here bishop on e8 was played, and now you see very powerful move f7. If you take with the bishop, then you get checkmated on h7. So that's why queen takes on f7 had to be played, knight takes on f7, bishop takes on f7, and now bishop on h5, trading off even more pieces. Bishop takes on h5, and now very powerful move queen on e6. Not immediately take this bishop, because now the knight is under attack. We can take maybe even here the pawn on f5, queen on f6 is also a threat. So you don't have time to cover your knight or get out with it, because there are really some dangerous threats. Or we can also take this pawn on d5 and create a pass pawn situation, which is also dangerous for black. That's why bishop on f3 was played, creating at least some kind of a tactic here on this g2. But now queen on f6, rook on g7, and now queen on f8, rook on g8, but now queen on f6, again king on rook on g7, but now finally queen takes on c6. Bishop on g2 was played. Of course, there are some discovered check threats, so that's why here first queen on e8 was played, rook on g8. It's a winning evaluation here for white, but let's see simple the continuation. Queen on e5 again, rook on g7, king on queen on b8, rook on g8 again, queen on e5. We have repetition here, but it's really game over here for black. Here rook on g7 was played, queen on b8, now rook on g8 again, but now queen on f4. We want to grab at least one of these pawns to create ourselves a pass pawn, because it's really dangerous and it's hard for black to fight against the pass pawn, which is supported with this queen now. Because in this open position like here, you can always get checked by the queen, and that's why you have to be careful. This pawn is really dangerous. a5 was played, of course. Leela C0 is trying to get use of this pass pawn herself, but here king on h2 was played. Now we want to get with the king out of this g-file mess. a4, queen on e5 again, rook on g7, but now queen on f5. h6, we have f3, and now rook on g5, queen on f8, king on h7, but now queen on f7, attacking the king again, and here king on h8, and here f4. Now we have a tempo on the rook. We want to get use of this pawn. We want to deflect maybe this rook from the defense of this h6. We want to deflect the rook and try maybe some checks with some double attacks on the king and the rook. Try to grab the rook and go really into a clear winning endgame here. So rook on g8 was played, f5, a3. You see, now it's all about this calculations. a3, f6 was played, a2, and you see, well, black is also one move far away from promotion, but now we have queen on a7, bishop on e4, queen takes on a2, and now rook on g2. But okay, you have this king on h3, and there are no good checks anymore for black here. Rook on g6 was played, queen on a6, bishop on g2. We have king on h4, bishop on e4. It's really lost game here. Queen on d6 was played, king on g8, queen on d8, king on h7, and in this position Leela C0 resigned, because we can simply continue to check, getting more forward with this pawn, and even checkmate here in a couple of moves. So dangerous, really dangerous chess here that's played by these top engines. I couldn't believe this bishop on f6 move, so let's go back. It's something unbelievable. So here in this position, after knight takes on h6, we have bishop on f6. Deep tactical calculations here by Stockfish. So as said, when the game, it seems always to me, when the game gets tactical, then Stockfish has really good chances. When there are tactical possibilities, if the position gets too positional, I think Leela C0 is unbeatable in these types of variations. So here Stockfish found really great tactics. So here this was also here after queen on d6 and queen on c8, a very powerful tactical move here. Rook on b7, deflecting the queen from the 8th rank, and this pawn was really a monster pawn. It was really basically like a piece here in the continuation of the game. You saw that Leela C0 had really troubles to handle this pass pawn here. Okay, I hope you enjoyed this game, and we'll continue to follow all of these winning games from the TCEC season 15, because as I said, although the season is over, I still want to analyze these games. They're really helping me. I hope you can learn also something through these games, although of course I cannot analyze all of these possible tactical motifs. But you see that this particular line that Stockfish has played was never played in this top grandmaster level. So it's not about maybe that these top grandmasters are not familiar with this line. So it's maybe just they don't trust this line. And if Stockfish plays it, I think maybe they can play it also. So I really like the game because it helped me to get a preparation against this French defense. The French defense caused me some troubles while playing with the move e4. So I think it's a great line to battle against this very positional setup with some tactical motifs here. So okay, I hope you enjoyed this game, and meanwhile you can watch my other commented chess games played by these top engines, and you can also watch my commented chess games played by this Mikhail Tal, Robert Fischer, and Garry Kasparov, and all of these best chess players from the history. And you can also subscribe to my channel. Thanks you for watching, guys, and chess is the best, of course.